I'll greet you one at a time. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
And Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
We live in Jewish life at the intersection of many cycles. There is the rise and fall of the sun and moon. There is the cycle of the week every 7 days with Shabbat. There are the cycles of the seasons and the cycles of the Jewish year, one of which turns new last evening and today. I welcome all those who are here, both in person and online, and anyone viewing this in the distant future on YouTube. You are also welcome to enter into this moment in time and to reflect on this turning of the cycle, this changing of the season, this new moment in your life and in ours. We'll begin with a nigun. A nigun is a wordless melody where the words don't matter as much as we are singing together. It is our Shabbat nigun, Bim Bam. Many of you are familiar with it, some may not be, but as you feel comfortable, please feel free to join me as we welcome Shabbat and welcome each other to this place of reflection and memory. Bim Bam, Bim 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 Bam, Bim 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 Bam. Bim Bam, Bim 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 Bam. Bim, 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 bam. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shalom, Shabbat, Shalom, Shabbat, Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Bim, bam, bim, 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 bam, bim, 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 bam. And just hum.
Today is an opportunity for hope and reflection. Life weaves together past and future, memory and anticipation. A pause at the calendar's turning helps us reflect on where we have been and where we hope to be in the year ahead. Please read with me. This is the season. We gather in this season to feel connections to each other and to Jews in every corner of the world. Our attachment transcends time and space, uniting us by emotion, memory, and community. We are part of the Jewish family, and we are a congregation of humanistic Judaism. This is the place. In this place, we are a fellowship of ideas and identity. We face the new year together, knowing that we are stronger with each other than we are alone. This is the moment. Let us use this moment to prepare ourselves with courage and conviction for the year that starts today. We are ready to begin again.
Thank you. The Jewish family is a world people.
Some see Jewishness as only a religion, a set of beliefs about the universe and the place of the Jewish people in it. Others see Judaism as a private club, open to true membership only to those from the right family background and to those willing to live by restrictive rules. Still others see Jewish identity as a biological marker, an indelible stain or a sign of status, being one of a tribe.
In truth, the Jewish people is a family with many branches and traditions. Just as families change from generation to generation and in new environments, so too has the Jewish family evolved. Our values have ranged from universal ethics to parochial bigotry. Each generation was formed by the Jewish culture, fashioned by the generation before. History and culture are our family's heirlooms, and we find our own balance between tradition and creativity, between freedom and memory.
The Jewish family is our family, and as we celebrate Rosh Hashana, the beginning of the Jewish New Year, we return to the best of our ancestral teaching to inspire us all over again.
I'm a child of wanderers in the desert, herders of sheep, seekers of water.
I am a child of slaves, toilers in the baking sun, builders of monuments to the mighty.
I'm a child of warriors, defenders of their people, cruel victors over others.
I am a child of prophets, speakers of truth or power, hard fanatics of a jealous God.
I'm a child of seekers after truth, scholars of ancient texts, mystics and dreamers.
I'm a child of farmers and vintners, glassblowers, goldsmiths, bookbinders and tailors.
I'm a child of poets and singers, laughing and hungering for wisdom and light.
I am a child of victims and martyrs.
I'm a child of those who fought back.
I am a child of Hasidim, open to the mystery of the cosmos.
I'm a child of enlightenment, discovering the secrets of the universe.
I am a child of the Jewish people, heir to its riches, owner to its treasures.
Our approach to Judaism has many roots. The Haskalah, or Jewish Enlightenment, taught us the power of rational inquiry. Humanist philosophers, both Jewish and non-Jewish, inspired our intellects. Jewish culture and tradition clung to our emotions. Our sense of dignity and integrity demanded Jewish fulfillment consistent with our new convictions. The Jewish people created Judaism, and it is our responsibility to reshape our heritage in creative and meaningful ways. We are in charge of our own lives, and that includes our Jewishness. We were responsible for our behavior. We were not alone in our pursuit of a humanistic Judaism. As a congregation and as a movement, we have marked transitions, published new ideas, creative curricula, and trained leaders and rabbis. Our creative response to our Judaism is a sign of our commitment to the Jewish family and its future.
The tree of life is also a tree of fire. There's no avenging angel, and there's no flaming sword turning in all directions, warding me off. The garden gates are open north and south, and in the east, the west, the heat of the day melts guardian shades like parent power away. I turn in all directions, facing inward, with the flame of self-burning. If I branch out, I go where my feet go, talk what my tongue talks, feel what my heart feels. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil bears fruit and flower, but the trees of life light up with their own power.
Can I ask you to please stand for a moment as we learn from the wisdom of our people? Thank you. Please be seated. At Kol Hadash, we learn from Jewish wisdom from every age. Last evening, we began Rosh Hashana with a reading from the book of Exodus. Today, we learn from modern Jewish writers, showing us that Jewish culture is always evolving, learning, and adding wisdom. Indeed, there are many Jewish traditions. Some Jewish cultures remained very separate from their surroundings, others integrated while maintaining a distinct identity. Some Jewish voices preach obedience, others celebrate defiance. There is even a Jewish tradition of rejecting being Jewish, or at least of rejecting Jewish authorities. These themes are all part of our heritage, even as we make our individual choices from that library. Humanistic Jews are tempted in two directions. On one side, there is the temptation of Jewish convention to seek the approval of the most traditional, to submit to the authority of our ancestors, to believe the traditional stories of creation, revelation, redemption, Jewish chosenness. On the other side, there is the temptation of the universal, to be one with all people, to leave behind our unique history and culture and family heritage, to become one of 8 billion human beings on the third planet from our sun in the middle of the Milky Way. We live between those two extremes, the particular and the universal, being special and being one of 8 billion in a vast universe. The 19th century Polish rabbi Simcha Bunim said that every person should have 2 slips of paper in their pocket. On one slip should be written, "The world was created for me," and on the other, "I am only dust and ashes." The story goes that he would take out each slip as necessary to either raise his spirits or to lower his ego. I prefer to live between the extremes and realize that both sides can be true. We are particular and universal, special and one of many, Jewish and human, traditional and rebellious in a Jewish tradition that includes many rebels. Our reading from Jewish literature today is a poem by Howard Nemerov entitled "Debate with the Rabbi." "You've lost your religion," the rabbi said. "It wasn't much to keep," said I. "You should affirm the spirit," said he, "and the communal solidarity." "I don't feel so solid," I said. "We are the people of the book," the rabbi said. "Not of the phone book," said I. "Ours is a great tradition," said he, "and a wonderful history." "But history's over," I said. "We Jews are a creative people," the rabbi said. "Make something then," said I. "In science and art," said he, "violinists and physicists have we." "Fiddle and physic indeed," I said. "Stubborn and stiff-necked man," the rabbi cried. "The pain you give me," said I. "Instead of bowing down," said he, "you go on in your obstinacy." "We Jews are that way," I replied. Please rise as we return our Torah to the Ark.
When Jewish history began, the Jews saw themselves as God's chosen. They believed that good behavior and piety would result in good treatment by the universe. From creation to Judgment Day, their key to survival was piety and righteous action, prayer and community. The wicked would be punished, and the righteous would be rewarded. The human experience and the Jewish experience has challenged this belief. Natural laws operate with no concern for human benefit. The wicked survive, and the righteous and pious can suffer unjustly. Jewish history in the last century is our star witness. Today, we read the same reality and learn a very different lesson. Jewish history reinforces our humanism and our Judaism. What we experienced has made us who we are. Those who know their past look to the future with hope.
There are those who now look back in complacency and indifference, who accept the fruits of the long journey, but ignore the bitter costs of liberation and its lessons in tenacity and endurance. They are the strangers, and the road passes them by. There are others who look back in gratitude and humility, who remember that few present blessings have been won without the sacrifices of the past, who continually reevaluate the spiritual and cultural treasures that the travail of the journey has produced. These are the true heirs of the generations, and for them the long and agonizing journey has been worthwhile.
Jewish culture created the Jewish people. Days lived in units of 7, years marked from autumn to autumn, text and context of language and literature. These were the building blocks of a lived experience of Judaism. This lived experience created Jewish personalities, Jewish communities, Jewish families and friends. Jewish culture created the Jewish people.
Jewish culture was created by the Jewish people. Every prayer, every poem, every story, and every joke was invented or adapted from another culture by a member of the Jewish people. Every tradition and every custom began in one family or in one community or in one corner of the Jewish world. Jewish culture was created by the Jewish people.
Life is an exchange. We are formed by culture and we form culture. If our identity is to be a living thing, it must always grow and change, as the Jewish culture always has. We are a part of a rich and varied tradition, and as every generation of Judaism has celebrated the best of its inheritance, tempered by the values and idea of its own day, so do we.
Bible is Judaism, Talmud is Judaism, everyday life is Judaism. Jewish history is Judaism. Jewish poetry is Judaism. Jewish customs are Judaism. Jewish food is Judaism. Jewish jokes are Judaism, just as religion is Judaism. But you cannot argue that Judaism equals the religious beliefs of Jews. First, because these beliefs were and are different, even mutually contradictory. And second, because religion was and is just one aspect of Jewish existence. Today, for many Jews, it is not even that. Judaism, then, is everything the Jewish people in their very long history have produced. Judaism is Jewish civilization. Judaism is Jewish culture.
Today we treasure both Jewish tradition and Jewish freedom. The first gives us roots, the second gives us wings. Caged bird. A free bird leaps on the back of the wind and floats downstream till the current ends and dips his wing in the orange sun rays and dares to claim the sky. But a bird that stalks down his narrow cage can seldom see through his bars of rage. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. The free bird thinks of another breeze, and the trade wind soft through the sighing trees, and the fat worms waiting on a dawn-bright lawn, and he names the sky his own. But a caged bird stands on the grave of dreams. His shadow shouts on a nightmare scream. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom.
Oh Kaddish.
Upon Israel, and upon the rabbis, and upon the disciples, and upon all the disciples of their disciples, and upon all who study the Torah in this place and in every place, to them and to you,
Peace. Upon Israel, and upon all who meet with unfriendly glances, sticks and stones and names, on posters, in newspapers, or in books to last, chalked on asphalt or in acid on glass, shouted from 1,000 windows by radio, who are pushed out of classrooms and rushing trains, whom the 100 hands of a mob strike, and whom jailers strike with bunches of keys, with revolver butts, to them and to you, in this place and in every place, safety.
upon Israel, and upon all who live as the sparrows of the streets, under the cornices of the houses of others, and as rabbits in the fields of strangers on the grace of the seasons. And what the gleaners leave in the corners, you, children of the wind, birds that feed on the tree of knowledge, in this place and in every place, to them and to you, a living,
upon Israel,
and upon their children, and upon all the children of their children,
in this place,
and in every place,
to them,
and to you,
life.
Our connection to the Jewish people is not a barrier to the outside world. Just as marrying into one family does not disown the family of your birth, so too we have found love and friendship and inspiration and commitment from the human family. Our Judaism is open enough to welcome love and family in many forms and strong enough to bind us together.
You don't have to be Jewish to love Levi's Rye. You could be Black, Italian, a Cherokee.
You don't have to be Jewish to love, certainly or uncertainly. You don't have to be Jewish to love Levi's Rye or to love anything.
A single caraway seed, or in the rough black seed of the 4 o'clock, enclosed in pastel petals late afternoon. You know it's there, and you don't have to be Jewish.
You don't have to be Jewish to walk a mile with the sun going down Rosie in the park, or to love Rosie in the park or at home, and Rosie loves you back.
You don't have to be Jewish to chew slowly, tasting the rye breaking down into sugar. You just have to be willing to slow down time to a poster, a still photograph of you in your ethnic garb in the days when ethnicity was okay, not yet terrifying or indistinct.
Kiss me, I'm Irish. Kiss me again, I'm gay, Italian, Chinese, and no parking, this space reserved for Polish.
You don't have to be Jewish. You could be anything amazing or distinct. You could have just once, for maybe an hour, a day, forgotten you were different.
You don't have to be Jewish. You don't have to be to love bread. You don't have to be rye to love Jewish, but it helps.
Loyalty is life. We live through the loyalty of others, not only the devotion of living family and friends, but also the loyalty of the past to the future. Countless numbers of our ancestors worked, saved, and forewent their pleasure to provide for generations yet unborn. They pursued distant goals they knew they would never reach, in order that their children and grandchildren could enjoy the fruit of their efforts. The mountain of human culture is built out of many layers of human achievement, each generation resting on the work of the one before.
We are here today because the people of the past did not forget us. Our ancestors have planted and we have reaped. Let us also live for more than the present. Let us also work for those who will follow.
If you are comfortable standing, could I ask you to stand for just a moment? There is a natural transcendence in the power of the human mind and the human heart to connect to people who are gone. When we remember our loved ones who are no longer with us, their faces, their touch, their sounds come back to us with vividness and with power. We are moved to feel that connection again. When we feel what we feel for them, love, longing, we feel them again, part of our lives. Their absence becomes a presence. Our connection transcends the loss. And so, even as we celebrate the beginning of a Jewish New Year, we pause to reflect on the power of love and memory, to connect to our loved ones yet again, and to bring their absence into our lives as a loving presence. Let us pause for a moment of silent tribute. In Jewish life, we say, Zecher tzadikim livracha. The memory of good people is a blessing to us. Please be seated as we hear a song of love. People sometimes ask me when I became a humanistic Jew. What happened to make me question traditional Jewish belief in an intervening God, a revealed Torah, binding religious law, the chosen people, all of it? My intellectual journey is actually very boring. I was raised a humanistic Jew. That's what I am today, the end. To borrow a phrase from one of our movement's founders, Yaakov Malkin, my family is actually very traditional. I am a humanistic Jew. My parents were both humanistic Jews. On my mother's side, her parents and grandparents on both sides were secular Jews. Even my rabbi growing up was the OG humanistic rabbi. My wife was raised as a humanistic Jew and still is. My mother-in-law is also a humanistic rabbi. And until they self-declare otherwise, my children are humanistic Jews too. This secular yichus, or humanistic Jewish pedigree, means that I am very comfortable with our philosophy, living it, explaining it, creating within it. My pedigree also means that I have a nagging question in the back of my mind. Am I a humanistic Jew by inertia? This is the way I've always done it? Am I still a humanistic Jew because changing my Judaism or dropping it altogether would create social and family and professional stress? Am I a victim of humanistic Jewish groupthink? Do not worry, I am indeed a committed humanistic Jew and rabbi. Sometimes our parents make choices we actually agree with. Raising me as a humanistic Jew worked, both for them and for us. And for me. It gave me Jewish roots and a way to understand the world that makes sense, that responds to new evidence, that provides values based on human experience and human need rather than revelation and religious authority. I am a humanistic Jew for the same reason as everyone else. This Judaism speaks to my heart and mind more meaningfully than any other identity. A key tenet of humanistic Judaism that speaks to me strongly is the core principle that each of us has the right and responsibility to think for ourselves. But do we? Do we think for ourselves? Last night and today, we sat together, hearing the same words, singing the same words, standing up and sitting down in unison, and in general, following instructions. If we are literally on the same page at the same time, is that not groupthink? While services are happening, I have no idea what you are actually thinking in your mind. Perhaps you are focused on the weather, or sports scores, or what other people are wearing. Maybe you are preoccupied by a health challenge, or you miss someone you care about, or you're thinking about anything other than the lyrics to Hine Matov or a poem by Maya Angelou. I chose which words you would hear. Ellen and I chose which songs we would sing. I chose which ideas would enter your ears to rattle around in your mind. If groupthink is always and forever bad, then ideological community like a humanistic Jewish congregation or action for social justice or advocacy for any issue, they are all fatally flawed. We reject groupthink, but we will have a hard time creating community or finding solidarity with others without at least some of it. Groupthink is a complicated subject. It is emblematic of the complicated relationship between individual free thought and living together. Let's clarify our subject. What is groupthink? Groupthink is going along with what the collective believes and not thinking for yourself. Groupthink is conformity, enforcing boundaries, orthodoxy with a lowercase o. Ortho as correct, like orthodontist. Dox as in doctrine, orthodox. Groupthink affects politics, religion, social mores, cultural expression, fashion, family dynamics. Groupthink is seductive. Being part of the clan is deeply ingrained in our evolutionary brain, and we feel more secure about our beliefs, our practices, even ourselves, if everyone agrees with us and we agree with them. One person making a statement is an opinion. 1 million people making that same statement feels like a fact. We have seen the dangers of groupthink in fascism and communism, in religious fanaticism and rigid communities. We've seen the social dangers of challenging groupthink, kneeling during a national anthem, challenging either-or gender binaries, asking questions about what everyone else knows to be true. Challenging the social consensus endangers our social standing, and that can apply to questioning orthodoxies, right, left, and center. One of the most interesting blessings in the rabbinic canon is the blessing on seeing a large multitude of people, understood to be 600,000 people or more. So it's not a blessing that's used very often. The blessing praises God, the knower of secrets, because, quote, the multitude's opinions are not the same, one from the other, and their appearance is not the same, one from the other. Who they are and what they think are all different. From our perspective, we celebrate the multitude of human opinions, 600 or 600,000, knowing that nothing and no one will ever know them all, understand them all, control them all, at least until AI takes over. In the words of a German folk song made famous by Pete Seeger, Die Gedanken sind frei, thoughts are free. I think as I please, and this gives me pleasure. My conscience decrees, this right I must treasure. My thoughts will not cater to duke or dictator. No one can deny. Die Gedanken sind frei. Our thoughts do not cater to duke or dictator or to rabbi or to religion. And yet, it takes some groupthink to gather together people based on shared beliefs and values. Groupthink is how humanity evolved beyond clans of 100 people into tribes of thousands, nations of millions, civilizations of tens of millions, religions of hundreds of millions. We need groupthink to accept shared concepts like money, or the nation state, or human rights. There is no basic human equality in nature read in tooth and claw. The cougar does not care about your human rights, and neither does a rival clan conquering your territory. If we sometimes question the virtues of unthinking national allegiance, we also acknowledge the precarious nature of the useful fictions, the group thoughts we all agree to believe in for the sake of social harmony, stability, and happiness. When we affirm that we as a community have the right and responsibility to think for ourselves, there is a paradox in that statement. If I tell you, think for yourself, how would that work? If you do think for yourself, you're doing what I told you to do, so you're not. If you do not think for yourself, then you agree with me, but then you need to think for yourself, because that's what I told you to do. Humanistic rabbis only have so much authority. We don't work in commandments. At best, we offer 10 strongly worded suggestions. The word mitzvah comes from the Hebrew root for to command. Rabbinic Jewish theology believed there were 613 mitzvot, commandments given by God and the rabbis. Some were what we would call good deeds, like honoring your parents or respecting elders or paying workers their wages on time. Some were ritual commandments, like dietary laws or wearing fringes or fasting on Yom Kippur. And some commandments were intellectual. Love God, fear God, believe the Torah came from heaven. All of them, all 613 were commandments, not suggestions, not proposals submitted for debate and democratic approval. Today we use the word mitzvah more colloquially, meaning good deeds, something we should choose to do, exemplary behavior. But commandments without a cosmic commander do not have the same force. Maybe they are folkways, the lifestyle of our ancestors, elements of our cultural inheritance that still resonate. But I cannot command you to do anything, as tempting as it might sometimes be. Maybe, just maybe, I can persuade you. What does it mean to persuade? Persuasion straddles the line between individuals thinking for themselves and groupthink. Persuasion means encouraging someone else to make up their own mind, but in a certain way. Persuasion encourages someone who is unsure to actually make a decision. Persuasion asks someone to change their mind from what they believed before. These are all very hard things to do, one at a time. To make up your mind, to make a decision, to actually change your mind. And if I'm persuading you, I'm asking you to do all of those all at once. And what if you are trying to persuade someone to change their mind on a core belief of their group identity? That is another order of magnitude harder. Now you're not just asking me to change my mind, you want me to change who I am. Yehuda Kurtzer of the Shalom Hartman Institute explains that true persuasion, true dialogue, is a risk. If I want to change your mind, the most effective path is to first understand you. But learning about what you believe might change my mind. When you are a teacher debating your student, or a parent with a child, and the student or the child changes your mind, in many ways that's a wonderful experience. It shows they have learned from you instead of believing what you believe. They are self-actualizing their own intellectual life. They are thinking for themselves, and they are not listening to you because of who you are. A famous story in the Talmud describes a rabbi rebuking a voice from heaven, telling the heavenly voice to butt out when rabbis are debating the law that God gave long ago. Since the law is ours, they declare, now it's up to us to make a decision. In a postscript to that surprising moment, a later rabbi asks what God's response was when he was told to leave them alone. That rabbi is told that God smiled and said, "Nitzchuni banai, my children have defeated me. My children have defeated me." The text actually says that twice. You can picture the God character shaking his head and smiling, just as we might if and when our children outsmart us or make us change our minds. True dialogue with an antagonist, however, with someone in a different groupthink bubble that is opposed to yours, that's a risk many of us will not take. It does make sense to me that certain basic issues of human dignity can be deemed non-debatable. I am not required to respect Nazis by publicly debating whether there really is not a global Jewish conspiracy controlling governments and operating space lasers. I will not debate whether there is such a thing as being transgender or whether same-sex couples should be allowed to marry. Maybe human rights are just groupthink, but dignity and respect are non-negotiable. I accept that the cost of this approach is that other people may declare that they will not debate me on the status of a fetus as a full person from the moment of conception, or their beliefs about transgender people. It may still be worthwhile to understand why our antagonists believe what they believe, if only so we can resist their impact on society. Understanding is not the same as engaging, debating, respecting. If it means we give up on persuasion sometimes, well, maybe they were never really persuadable. This summer, I attended the Parliament of the World's Religions at McCormick Place in Chicago. The first such Parliament of the World's Religions was held in Chicago in 1893, part of the Columbian Exposition. The second was also held in Chicago in 1993. This Parliament was number 9. 500 years ago, an assembly of the world's religions would have become an ultimate fighting championship. As Tom Lehrer once sang, "Oh, the Protestants hate the Catholics, and the Catholics hate the Protestants, and the Hindus hate the Muslims, and everybody hates the Jews." Religion is the most prominent example of groupthink in human history. So what happened at this 2023 Parliament of the World's Religions? I helped staff an exhibition table shared by Humanistic Judaism with the American Humanist Association. There were basically 4 faces and encounters we experienced. The first was, "What are you doing here?" The second was, okay, I see why they might be here. I have no interest at all in talking to them, but it's okay that they're here. The third was, that's intriguing. What is a humanist group doing here? Maybe I'll talk to them and learn more about their perspective. And the fourth was, wow, so excited to see a humanistic perspective included in the spectrum of religious options. Many of those were Unitarian Universalists, some liberal Jews, but they were glad to see that humanism was part of the spectrum of world religions. There was no hatred. There was almost no yelling. There were no pogroms. There was no inquisition. After all, this parliament was a self-selected group of religious people who want to spend time with other religions, to learn about them, to find out what they have in common and what they can work on together to improve the world despite theological differences. The fundamentalist extremists who are convinced that everyone else is going to hell, well, this parliament would have been their hell. Many different religions, even secular humanists, chatting, getting along, encouraging tolerance. There were certainly plenty of group thinkers there, but they were willing to dialogue. No one really expected to change anyone else's mind. We were there to share who we were and what we believed and to learn about others. Sometimes, just sometimes, the barriers of groupthink can go down and minds can change. Sometimes there are two sides to an issue and persuasion is possible. Remember the joke about two disputants coming to a rabbi for resolution? After hearing the first case, the rabbi says, "You are right." When he hears the antagonist's response, he says, "You are also right." An observer says, "Rabbi, you said person A and person B are both right. They can't both be right." The rabbi responds, "You are also right." I can believe that Israeli settlement expansion in the West Bank is wrong. I can believe that Israel's treatment of Palestinians and the Palestinian Authority is both short-sighted and oppressive. I can believe that there are racist anti-Arab sentiments among groups of Israeli Jews and diaspora Jews too. I can also believe that the Palestinian Authority is corrupt and ineffective. I can believe that many Palestinians would like there to be no Israel by any means necessary. I can believe that anti-Semitic attitudes are widespread in the Arab world. Is this both sidesism, distracting from one set of problems by saying everyone's terrible? Or am I simply acknowledging that there is more than one perspective? Truth and morality are not monopolies held by one side or the other. We will return to our complicated relationship with Israel on Yom Kippur. Consider this your teaser trailer. The point is that groupthink and group loyalty can close our eyes and our ears to other perspectives. Sometimes we have to force them open to make us think for ourselves. It's very easy to sign on the party line, very easy to agree with what people like you all think, very easy to like the same posts and share the same memes that confirm what we already believe. I think it's good for us to be a heretic once in a while from our own orthodoxies. We all have our groupthink orthodoxies. What are your heresies? Maybe you're a progressive who questions liberal immigration. Maybe you're a libertarian who sees value in government support for healthcare access. Maybe you're a fiscal conservative who would subject all wage income to Social Security tax for fairness' sake. We all have our orthodoxies. What are your heresies? Kol Hadash is an ideological community. Humanistic Judaism is an ideological community. We have shared values and beliefs. We affirm everyone's right and responsibility to make up their own minds on the big and the small questions of life, even though sometimes their conclusions take them beyond the boundaries of a humanistic Jewish community. As the Yiddish saying goes, you shouldn't be so open-minded that your brain falls out. The strength of our community is not built on uniformity, on rigid groupthink, on orthodoxy, on demanding agreement. We celebrate the power of no, the power of I disagree, the power of I have a different opinion. We balance our groupthink with our freethink. Is that complicated? Of course, but we would not have it any other way. If I had a congregation that agreed with me 100% of the time, that would be disturbing. Thank you for agreeing. If I persuade you, great. If I do not persuade you, also great. If I make you think longer and deeper and differently before you make up your own mind, mission accomplished. Wishing you and yours a happy, healthy, and thought-provoking new year. We conclude our service at the end of your service booklet on page 14 with the song of celebration welcoming the new year and a chance to be together called Hava Nagila. One of the best parts about being involved in Jewish life is that you know more lyrics to the song than Hava Nagila blah, 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 blah. You have them printed for you on page 14. Please join us in singing together. Once again, I wish you a Shabbat Shalom and a Shana Tova. Please wish Shabbat Shalom and Shana Tova to the people sitting near you.